Hey everybody, it's Dean Guccione and welcome to this week's video where I'm going to be talking about the firefighter application. And you might be asking yourself, well, Dean, what's the big deal? I've filled out dozens of applications for fire departments. But let me tell you, in the last 20 years, I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of firefighter candidates, and I've literally screened thousands of firefighter applications. And I want to tell you that many applications get disqualified for basic things, and you're probably thinking, well, what kinds of things are those? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And the first thing that I want you to think about when you're filling out your application is to follow directions. It's really imperative that you read the job flyer for the department that you're testing for and read the application all the way through before you even start filling it out. Because you've got to follow the directions exactly, or guess what? You're going to be disqualified. And that's the whole purpose of this. I want your application to go through so you get that chance to take the written exam and get an interview and ultimately realize your dream of becoming a full-time professional firefighter. And that's why I'm here, and I'm here to help you, and I'm here to serve you. And just doing some kind of subconscious or unconscious mistakes on your application can end up disqualifying you. And what if it's your target department? It's the one thing if you don't care about that or you're just testing to get experience. But let's say this is your target department. All right, so make sure you read that job flyer fully and you understand all the qualifications, because many departments now, they require some kind of education. They might require core classes. They require maybe EMT. You might be applying for a paramedic firefighter spot, in which case you'd have to be paramedic qualified. You'd have to have your paramedic license. And they might require other different classes or even associate degrees. I know some departments now are stepping up their education requirements. And so I want you to really read that job flyer through real carefully and make sure that you qualify for that department before you apply. You can go ahead and apply. If you don't qualify, you're just going to get a letter a week or two later saying thanks, but no thanks. So you don't want to waste your time, because you can spend your time better preparing instead of wasting time filling out applications for departments that you're not qualified. So again, really follow the directions exactly to the T and really understand the requirements and the qualifications for that department, and you'll be fine. Because the whole idea, the last thing I want to see is get disqualified on anything. So then the next thing we're going to talk about are the attachments that you're going to put on your application. So those attachments are going to make up your certificates and your licenses. So again, under the job flyer, it's going to tell everything that's required of you: your driver's license, your EMT certification, maybe your paramedic certification. Maybe they require you to be a fire academy grad, so you're going to need to attach all of those things. Now, they might even have education requirements like associate degree or a certain amount of college degrees in fire technology or fire science. And you want to attach all of those things, your transcripts and the certifications for the classes that you've taken. Because I can't tell you, out of thousands of applications I go through, and our department requires you to be 21 years old. It requires you to have a driver's license, requires you to be EMT, and it requires you to have 18 units of fire technology classes, and it requires you to have your Firefighter 1 or Fire Academy certification. And dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of applications that I screen don't have the requirements attached. We require a BIDL or a CPAT for your physical ability. And many candidates don't attach any of that stuff. Then the attachments are just blank. So guess what I do? They go into the trash, and they get a letter from HR saying, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. And then they call up HR freaking out, but I qualified. No, you don't, because we can't prove that you meet the minimum qualifications just to apply. So remember, to prevent any hassles and to prevent you from getting disqualified and getting that letter from HR, attach all of the required certifications in addition to other certifications as well, like Academy grad and maybe your paramedic license and those kinds of things, and some additional classes that you might have. And then there's no question that you meet those minimum qualifications and you're following the directions for that department. All right, the third component on your application, which is just as critical, is do not lie about anything on your application. So again, you know, everybody has something in their background maybe that they're not proud of. But again, when you lie on your application, you're going to be disqualified. Now, everybody makes mistakes in their lives, including me. We've all made mistakes, but the majority of the mistakes are not disqualifying as far as you getting a job. But if you don't disclose those things on your application, like it asks you, have you ever been terminated for a job, any job? Have you ever been disciplined? Have you had a misdemeanor or a felony? You know, if you've had a felony, you're going to have a really difficult time becoming a firefighter. So I'm not even really going to go down that road. But and even if you had it plead down to a misdemeanor, depending on what the circumstances, chances are, if you've ever had a felony, you'll never become a firefighter, because that just shows what, you know, a felony was just, you got busted and you got in trouble by the law and the state, and you had to go to court because you had a massive lapse in judgment. And you cannot have those kinds of lapses in judgment. I mean, so far where you're doing something so incredibly wrong that it's a felony in whatever state that you live in. So now misdemeanor is a little bit different thing. That really depends again on the circumstance. But again, if you've had any kind of misdemeanor, or you've been terminated from a job or been disciplined, you need to disclose that on the application and give a brief description of what happened. Then they're going to talk about it a little bit more in your interview. And if you get through the interview process, then they're really going to go into it in your background. And then they'll have to make a determination. So again, you know, we've all made mistakes. And if you look at some of the mistakes that you've made, and you have what we call in the fire service time, distance, and shielding. We use that for radiation emergencies. So if you have time, distance, and shielding from a mistake that you made, in other words, time, you know, this mistake didn't happen a year ago or 6 months ago or 3 months ago or a month ago, but if you've got, you know, 4, 5, 10 years from when this mistake happened, let's say it's a DUI, for example, and you talk to the interview panel and you talk to the background investigator, if you get that far, you go, look, this was a big mistake, and you know, I got in trouble, I served my time, and I paid my fines and all that. Whatever the circumstances were, be honest about it. But gosh, take something away from that. Take something away and go, look, this is a massive lesson I learned. Not only for myself and my personal life, but gosh, I could have killed somebody driving under the influence. So I learned a huge lesson, and I have not done that since, and I will not do that again in the future. And this is the direction that I'm going for my life, which does not include that type of behavior anymore. And if you're really honest from the heart, and you talk to the investigator, even the interview panel, if they ask you about it, chances are you're going to be fine. Because in my department, we have a few people who have had some issues with their background. I'm not going to explain exactly what, but they learned a lesson from it, and they distanced themselves from it, and they had some time. So if you have a DUI 6 months ago, you're going to need probably 5 years before you're going to be eligible. Maybe 3, but a good 5 years. So the moral of the story is just try to stay as clean as you can in your background, and exercise good judgment, and don't do dumb things. So again, the last thing we want to do is get you disqualified in your job application. So remember to follow directions, read the job flyer thoroughly, and check the qualifications, and make sure you qualify, and make sure that that if you don't qualify, don't waste your time, because you could spend that time that you're applying in preparing for another department that you are qualified for. Okay. So then the next thing is certifications and licenses. Attach everything that's required in the job flyer to that application. And you can even attach a few other certifications that you have as well, and then they'll sift through those. But they want to make sure that if it's a department that requires a driver's license, a fire academy, college units, CPAT or BIDL, and maybe a Fire Academy certification or a Firefighter 1 certification. Attach all of those so you don't get disqualified. Because if you get disqualified, then that department may not test again for another year or two or even longer. So the application is incredibly important. So make sure you do all this stuff really right and really think about it and do the right things here. And again, lying on your application. The last thing that you would want to do is lie on your application. That is the fastest thing that is going to disqualify you from either getting an interview or getting to go to the written exam, let alone the background. Because if you lie here and you lie in your interview and then you tell the truth in your background, then you're going to be out, because they all compare, the interview panel compares their notes with the background investigator. They write down everything you say, and the background investigator compares everything you said with what you write down in your background. So again, you've got to be upfront, and if you've done anything dumb, just come forward and say, yeah, I did this, and this is what I learned from it. So I really hope this served you, and I really hope that it'll help you prepare for your next firefighter job application. So what I'd like you to do is leave a comment at the bottom and leave a question if you have, and I read all the comments and I try to answer all your questions. So what I'd like you to do this week is go out and make a difference in somebody's life this week. And always, always, always work towards becoming that firefighter candidate that all departments want to hire. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.